Today it is our pleasure to welcome Dr. ManjitSYadav to Great Lakes. Dr. Yadav is a Mays Research Fellow and Professor of Marketing, Mays Business School, Texas A&M University. He also serves as a Research Director of the Marketing Department's Center for Retailing Studies. Dr. Yadav joined Texas A&M University in 1990 after receiving his PhD in Marketing from Virginia Tech. His work has been published in a number of leading journals and is a member of the editorial boards of Journal of the Academy of Marketing Science and the Journal of Interactive Marketing. Dr. Yadav is a recipient of the Faculty Distinguished Achievement Award in Teaching. Sir, we welcome you once again and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me in the back? Can you hear me? Thank you. I was just talking to one of your students here and I was informed that you guys just had a test right before this. So if you are in a bad mood, just shake it off. Because you're gonna, I'm told there's going to be lots and lots of tests as we go through the program. Anyway, it's my pleasure to be here. I know it's late in the afternoon. The topic that I've selected for my talk today is innovation. I know a lot of, I was talking to Professor Bhardwaj over coffee this afternoon, and he had to leave because the buses leave at 4:30. Maybe he was not interested in my talk. But anyway, we had a great conversation, and he told me, I think that a majority of you, at least 65% of the students in this group, in the first term group here, is a background in engineering. Is that true? Could you raise your hand, please, if you have an engineering background? Okay, so that is, I also know there are at least 2 or 3 lawyers, or at least 2 lawyers. Is anybody in law? I know I was talking to you. There's one more in the back? One more lawyer, or just one lawyer? One lawyer. Okay. My talk today is going to be about innovation, and while talking to Professor Bhardwaj, he told me, I said, the isolation of this campus is actually probably a big plus. I think you come here for 1 year, and there's nothing else to do, except study, and he said, well, that is true, but not entirely true. And I said, so what else is here? He says, well, there's Mahabalipuram. So obviously I don't know much about this area, and I said, well, he said, let me just say there are lots of vice, in Mahabalipuram. Because this campus, beautiful campus, is actually located right on the ocean, and my topic is about innovation, let me ask you kind of a quick quiz question. If you have heard this particular question before, hold your breath, don't answer this question. The question is this. How many, in your opinion, do more people in this world die from shark attacks, or do more people die from falling parts from an airplane? Let me repeat the question. Do more people die in the world, the likelihood of dying from a shark attack, do you think is greater or less than the likelihood of dying from a small part falling from an airplane? If you raise your hand, if you think it's sharks. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's falling parts from aircraft. And I guess the remaining are not sure yet, right? Well, the correct answer actually is, believe it or not, this group is quite interesting because whenever I ask this question, typically I'll get the response, that the shark attacks actually are much, much greater, than falling parts from an airplane. The correct response, there were only 4 fatal shark attacks in the world last year. Only 4 fatal shark attacks in the world. There have been many, many more documented cases of people actually being seriously injured or being killed by parts that are falling from an aircraft. So why is it? Why do you think it is? I think that when most people are asked the question, the shark story, so to speak, dominates the thought process. Yes, please. Speak up loud so everybody can hear you.
The picture of a shark attacking is a more dramatic vision for a person. and just by what he sees out of a picture of a shark attachment in this direction.
Okay, so any other responses? I don't know if you could hear in the back there. I think it was mostly about, could you hear his response? Okay.
Media coverage.
It's about that the sharks basically, I think, get more coverage in the media. Whenever there's some dramatic event, I think, that everybody on television is talking about it. I think whereas, I think the aircraft story is usually sort of really buried, I think, on the 10th page of the newspaper somewhere. Somebody else had a response here? The media coverage. So how does this relate to my topic here is managing the future for innovation, market innovation and growth. You'll be surprised, I think, that many of you are, of course, coming back to the MBA program because you believe, I think, that you'll be able to acquire certain skills to be a more effective manager, I think, when you're back in the workforce, making more money, paying all the loans, I think, and actually being successful in the profession that you've selected. I did a research project with some colleagues about a year ago in which we looked at the annual reports of major companies in the United States, and we tried to find out how much time was being devoted to things that had not yet happened. What proportion of the time in the annual reports was devoted to things that had not yet happened? And any guesses? What percentage do you think it will be? 10%, 30%, 40%, 50%? Okay, let's take one at a time. Maybe this section. What percentage of time in the reports of major companies is devoted to things that have not yet happened? 40%? 2%? 10%? 60%? 5%? 70%. So you can, I think we have gone through the entire gamut. I think we've gone from 2% to 70%. Based on, we had 170 public companies, large, these are companies that you would recognize immediately if I gave you the names of these companies. Less than 8% of the time of the space on these annual reports is devoted to things that have not yet happened. How many of you heard of C.K. Prabhat? Bless his soul, as you know, he died recently. C.K. Prabhat actually was a speaker at Texas A&M, I think just a couple of months ago, at Texas A&M. I had the real pleasure of having dinner with him. Our department was hosting this talk. C.K. Prabhat, as you know, is a prolific writer, and he had written a book with a colleague of his, Gary Hamel. Gary Hamel and C.K. Prabhat had if you've not read this book, maybe in your program you're going to be so busy, you won't have time to read anything besides what your professors ask you to read. But after you have a real life out of the MBA program, think of a book called Managing the Future. In fact, the title actually sort of is stolen from their work. And what they actually report in their book is that senior leadership in most large companies in the world devote very, very little time to thinking about things that have not yet happened. And that goes back to my story about the sharks and the falling parts of the airplane. The reason why people think of sharks all the time as being so prominent in their attacks on human beings is because we are bombarded by the media. That's what is on the top of our minds when we're thinking about these sort of events. Similarly, when you are a senior executive, you'll always be fighting fires. I think people are wanting to quit. They want to do something else. There's a conflict. There's a personnel issue. Sales are dropping. So you go to work any day and you'll be surrounded by things in your environment, and that's what dominates your thinking. And I guess if there's one takeaway from my talk today, and that is going to be that when you are in senior leadership positions in the companies that you're going to be leading in your careers, take a deep breath and ask yourself, have I been spending enough time thinking about things that have not yet happened? And if you do, I can assure you, you will reap fantastic dividends from that investment. Looking ahead, looking to the future, forcing yourself to sort of really kind of move yourself away from the immediate environment that you are in That's very, very hard to do. Very, very difficult to really kind of find the time to think ahead.